bringing you down on the healer. He's a really good flex player. He can basically play all the different specializations. You have Smexen, who's sort of a melee specialist known for the Arms Warrior, Chun-Li, the Windwalker Monk, and Thugonomics, who's really dedicated himself to the Destruction Warlock over the years. Lucky for him, this is his patch.
This is just absolutely an all-star match of personalities in the NA. It's the boys versus the rejects.
The OG Thugonomics, the original Destruction Warlock himself, stepping into the arena, but Jamili is just going to meet him straight away with a counter spell and immediately start heavy crowd control. Gorecki respects it, but Rubcub then moves in to follow the chain. Jamili gets denied on the follow-up. Gorecki will get out of this, and the crowd control has been stalled out. Now Chun-Li setting up for an attack of his own, but Roasty's instead going for a smoke bomb play onto Thugonomics, and smoke bomb not going to be too useful against the Destruction Warlock. They're just so durable in this matchup. I think I would have rather seen that saved for a swap to a different target. Now Jamili falling behind off the back of this initial assault.
Yeah, Jamili pushing in with all his blinks there, not really able to accomplish too much. Gorecki did trinket out, Thugonomics trinketed as well, but they've so far been able to deflect this initial attack from the rejects. The rejects getting lower, Jamili in full retreat right now, as Thugonomics, I believe, does have his Infernals out, so he's going to be doing additional damage. You really don't want to mess with that cooldown. Chun-Li getting controlled up now by Jamili, who's just spamming out the polymorphs, waiting until Rubcub can push in and get that Hodge once again.
Yeah, Rubcub and Gorecki. Gorecki re-stealths to avoid getting Hammer of Justice. That was a nice maneuver on his part. Now he can move to the other pillar. Rubcub sees him, going after him. It's Rubcub chasing down Gorecki, but he just cannot catch a deer running that quickly away. Chaos Bolts could be an ice block. Jamili, Temporal Shield, perfect timing. Jamili's aggression and defense on point here in game one and starting to re-stabilize. Still would like to see Roasty hold on to that smoke bomb for a different opportunity. It would be maybe good in this position now. Chun-Li getting polymorphed far away. Gorecki unable to dispel. Jamili's trying to bait Gorecki in, and Gorecki is not falling for that bait whatsoever. Now Jamili switching polymorph to Thugonomics. They're switching their attention to Chun-Li. Gorecki sees that swap coming, premeditates it with Iron Bark, reducing a lot of his damage, but is that even going to be enough? He's really just getting destroyed. Chun-Li uses Gateway to escape back to safety as both these teams are trying to set up some cheeky damage. You see Ring of Peace knocking Jamili into the open. Chun-Li stealing moves out of Rez's book.
Yeah, Chun-Li definitely doing a good job with that Ring of Peace. Good synergy by Thugonomics and Chun-Li, so Thugonomics can get as much damage as possible out with those Chaos Bolts. Jamili, I think he's playing Greater Pyro, so when he's playing these defensive positions, he's looking to set up some damage, some opportunities with that Greater Pyro Blast. But with Chun-Li all over him, it's been difficult so far. Interrupt now on Thugonomics. Roasty's just trying to create some pressure on Thugonomics. He's getting low. No Iron Bark available. Hammer of Justice on Gorecki. If he trinkets out of this, it's going to be disastrous. Thugonomics barely holding on, not using his Unending Resolve, actually gets interrupted. They continue the chain on Gorecki. He does get fully polymorphed. This is so scary for Thugonomics. He gets interrupted once again into a Garrote Silence. Still not using the Unending Resolve, finally using it before the Kidney Shot. Gorecki still into the polymorph. This is a really nice chain coming in from the rejects.
Tons of damage by Jamili and Roasty, both just dealing so much. Thugonomics is starting to fall. Gorecki moves in, walks into a blind, trinkets out into a Hammer of Justice. Now getting swapped to Greater Pyroblast by Jamili. Lots of damage following it up. Gorecki ducks around the corner, trying to recover in bear form. They're not able to keep up the chase. Instead, going back to Thugonomics, not wanting to leave him open. But the rejects are doing tons of damage in this matchup. Rubcub really shining on that Paladin. Is he going to make it work in this Resto Druid meta, where you have to wait and see? Chun-Li, Fist of Fury flying, interrupting Polymorph, keeping up the damage as much as possible. As Jamili blinks back to the side of Rubcub, who's sitting through some crowd control and unable to heal. Gorecki is vulnerable at this point. Chun-Li is vulnerable at this point, and Thugonomics is vulnerable at this point. However, Thugonomics does have that Infernal banked. He can pop that out and counter pressure, so Rubcub needs to get ready for it. But aside from that, the rejects are all over the boys.
Well, look at this. Gorecki, no Trinket, no Iron Bark. Thugonomics, no Unending Resolve. They just need one good setup. They have Vendetta coming up in 30 seconds. If they can keep Gorecki in a CC chain, I think they still have Blind as well available for Roasties and Smoke Bomb. So this is a huge opportunity for the rejects if they can just get one clean setup. Thugonomics trinkets out. He's trying to reflect some damage from Jamili. Double Chaos Bolt, Mortal Coil comes in on a Roasties and Jamili, avoiding that setup. But with Roasties, or with Gorecki positioned so far away, he can get those heals on Thugonomics, connect the Iron Bark, and Thugonomics will ultimately survive.
Good block by Jamili with that Temporal Shield on the Chaos Bolts to stay aggressive, but not enough damage to put Thugonomics down. He responds to that Smoke Bomb quite effectively. Rubcub retreating back away with Jamili. Rubcub line of sighting Thugonomics to avoid that spell lock. Top Jamili off with a couple of Holy Lights, and then start to get aggressive. Jamili needs to get control control of Chun-Li. He's blinking now away to get a polymorph. Gorecki out of range, and now he has to walk into Rubcub. He's not falling for the bait. Gorecki instead avoiding Hammer of Justice. Typically, you'd want to dispel Chun-Li, but Gorecki needs to avoid crowd control at all costs. So instead of falling for that trap, he just decides to run away from Rubcub, and now Chun-Li is inevitably free from that crowd control. Gorecki escapes with that gateway wild charge jump, and Gorecki is quite a slippery healer in this matchup. I can only imagine how infuriated Rubcub is at this point.
Yeah, he's been trying to secure that Hammer of Justice. Now Roasty's looking for the blind. Gorecki managed to hold on to his trinket long enough so he could trinket out of that. Now a nice setup over on Roasty's. He trinkets out, uses the evasion as well. Thugonomic's going to be fine as Gorecki did trade out his trinket. I can't help but feel like the rejects, if they had just pulled the trigger on that blind a little bit earlier, I think they had it available before Gorecki had his trinket. I could be wrong about that. Now Rubcub looking for some more follow-up CC so they can do another go. Greater Power Blast was cast on Thugonomics. It gets reflected onto Jamili with the Chaos Bolt, with the Infernal. Jamili blinks it, nicely done. Gorecki now caught into Hammer of Justice, but the Ring of Frost gets interrupted. Thugonomics still getting bursted down. Huge pressure, but Gorecki deflects with the Iron Bark. Is it enough? Chun-Li trying to help out with the heals. What is this damage? Rubcub assisting huge with the Avenging Crusader, and the Rejects claim game number 1.
Rejects going to be able to do just that. We asked before we got into this series if this was a meta for Jamili, for the Rejects. Zico, how's it looking for him?
It's definitely looking like their meta. I mean, we already know that fire assassination is very, very strong. The biggest question is, of course, is the Paladin going to be good enough? Because we typically see it with that Resto Druid. The short answer is, yeah, it seems to be. I think if they go up against maybe an RMD with a Druid, that might be something that's going to test them really. But so far in game number 1, it was pretty clean. They didn't really land those big setups that we like to see from the Impala, but they just overwhelmed with damage here towards the end, managing to take Gorecki down through that Iron Bark. Beautiful CS there from Jamili as well, and they were going to land that polymorph there at the end on Gorecki. Gorecki, of course, also did a phenomenal job trying to avoid those Hammer of Justices, re-stealthing, trying to kite Rubcub around those pillars. I think he played it really well. I would like to see Roasties pull the trigger more on Vendetta. Whenever Iron Bark is down, just pressure him. That way, Gorecki can't run around those pillars. Instead, he's going to be forced to run into line of sight, and then you can just easily Hammer of Justice him, set up that CC chain.
So he's going to be trying to come in right now, stealing everything that he can with Kleptomania, but the boys have a new composition. Will it be enough on Dollar and Sewers?
Windwalker Death Knight making a bit of a return throughout the tournament today with Colo showcasing. And actually, Colo used to be on this team, the boys. Gorecki substituting in for him instead. And I can only imagine that Colo is just rubbing his palms together like, please, Rejects, send the boys down to the lower bracket so he can have a shot at them later today, potentially. We have to wait and see as Roasties moves in, gets a sap on Gorecki, immediately opening up on Smexen on that Death Knight at the target. How do you feel about this target selection? Do you think the Windwalker or the Death Knight's better early on?
I'm really not sure. I don't know. I don't know which one's better. I feel like Chun-Li has a lot of defensive cooldowns starting to negate the Fire Mage and the Assassination Rogue. If he rotates properly, it's going to be difficult to kill. It could be one of those cases where the Rejects is trying to exploit the most inexperienced person, and that would be Smexen on the Death Knight.
Yeah, let's see how he does here with Jamili and Roasties raining down terror. Jamili actually taking a lot of damage early on, and Rubcub able to recover with a couple Holy Lights. Now marching his way across the map. He wants Gorecki. Gorecki sees him coming. Rubcub's going to stall it up, but a smoke bomb gets dropped over onto Smexen. Icebound Fortitude is an even trade. It gets him out of that stun and out of the smoke cloud so he can be healed, but Icebound Fortitude is also their strongest defense for Vendetta, which has now immediately been popped. Roasty sees the opportunity and immediately tries to seize it. Smexen, let's see how he does in this Death Knight, getting out a couple Death Strikes and recovering. Gorecki trinkets out of blind. These trades on cooldowns are quite effective, but now Smexen caught into another stun. Vendetta still rolling for a few more seconds, but Jamili is still getting just owned by Chun-Li. Big Maledict as Jamili gets maledicted again by Gorecki. Temporal Shield gets gripped back in. They're racing against it to get the cauterized. Can they race against the clock here? They need a couple. No, they can't. Temporal Shield bounces Jamili back just in the nick of time.
And Smexen's playing Dark Simulacrum, but he hasn't used it one time in this game. I really feel like with the way Jamili's just spamming out these polymorphs, Smexen can abuse that. He can steal the polymorph, then put it on Rubcub, and that just extends their crowd control chain by so much. Definitely want to see Smexen using that as often as possible. Right. And he does. He gets the full polymorph on Rubcub.
All right, and then Rubcub has to use the Gladiator's Medallion to break out, so interesting choice there. If they can get crowd control with this Dark Simulacron of Smexen, it could be an opportunity to find victory, but Rubcub's got a Vengeance Crusader rolling. He's the OG Holy Paladin all the way back when that talent was created. He's going to go hammers down, try and carry the team, but he's got to recover before that point. With Jamili down at half, Roasty's rotting down, Gorecki jumping into the fight as well to try and support, stunning Jamili, holding him in place, but again, Temporal Shield perfectly timed. It's almost like Jamili did not leave the arena scene since last year. On-point aggression, on-point defense, and at this point, I would say that Smexen is starting to fall behind. Rubcub currently caught into a stun, unable to heal, but not really too much damage. He's trying to march across towards Gorecki. How's Gorecki going to deal with it? He jumps away. Rubcub still in hot pursuit, chasing him down. Gorecki resells, but not able to get it in time. Double cross crowd control. Perfect setup by the reject. Smexen on his own here. Trades out anti-magic shield, soaking up all of Jamili's damage and buying his team more time to get out of crowd control as it just ends right now. Gorecki connects a quick heal, and now Jamili on the back foot.
Yeah, Jamili taking a whole bunch of damage. He used both blinks to get that Ring of Frost on Gorecki, so that can definitely backfire. Now Smexen and Chun-Li going to have huge uptime. Rubcub into the paralysis. Is there going to be any follow-ups? You see Gorecki pushing in, gets the bash on Rubcub, looking for the Cyclone as well. Jamili probably has a counterspell available, so it's risky for Gorecki to really go for it. Doesn't opt to. Temporal Shield used by Jamili. Going to heal up some of this damage. Rubcub just needs to hold on a little bit longer. Full blind on Gorecki. Immediately traded out. Nicely done. You can keep Smexen aggressive, keep the rejects in a very defensive position. If you look at mana, you can see the rejects are far behind.
Yeah, at this point, it's not looking too good for them overall. I would like to see a swap to Gorecki, just an all-in kill on him with Vendetta and Combustion. Crowd control Smexen, deny his support, and just go all out. Another Dark Simulacron's polymorph onto Rubcub, building a lot of momentum towards Jamili as a result. Smexen continues the chain. Rubcub respects it, trades out a Blessing of Protection, and now Gorecki is exposed. I would have loved to seen a swap to him, but instead looking for polymorphs. Jamili gets denied and not able to follow it up. Instead, Smoke Bomb gets dropped. Smexen able to easily walk out of that. Maybe a bit of a misplay there on Roasty's part. Now that Smoke Bomb threat completely nullified. Jamili needs to be careful. He can't afford to get Dark Simulacron on these polymorphs. Yeah, I believe that he just was, but Smexen needs to survive. He's going to use Icebound Fortitude, polymorph Rubcub, but he's standing too close to the Unholy Death Knight's diseases, and it's going to break that polymorph and deny a potential ice block force. Critical mistakes here from the boys, and the rejects may have an opportunity.
Yeah, Jamili's still low, though, not getting topped off. Nice
ring
from Chun-Li, keeping Jamili in the wall, forcing out the ice block. Very nicely done. There was no way Jamili was getting out of that one with no blinks available. Beautiful plays from Chun-Li. Now an interrupt on Rubcub. Jamili doesn't get quite topped off. Roasty's taking a bit of cleave damage as well. You can see Gorecki throwing in that Gladiator's Maledict onto Jamili, reducing some of this incoming healing from Rubcub. Still, the CC chain extends on Rubcub. The rejects, they have to do something. Gorecki, he's just playing too far away. He's been avoiding crowd control. Really well done. Triple leg sweep coming in once again. Sacrifice going out from Rubcub onto Jamili will keep him alive, but the rejects is running out of defensive cooldowns fast.
Hello and welcome everybody from StarCraft. You joined at one of the most intense moments of this Warcraft game, in particular. Rubcub incredibly far behind with all three members of his team at critical moments of health. How's Rubcub going to recover? He's trying to do his best work, but just not able to restabilize. Chun-Li, Smexen tearing in with tons of pressure. Gorecki having free reign. Rubcub removes the crowd control, connects a big Holy Light, but he still needs to top off another member of his team, going for another one. Roasty's recovering, and Rubcub has somehow managed to do it. Despite this Restoration Druid meta, Rubcub continues to stay on that Holy Paladin, doing whatever he can to make it work. Chun-Li trying to lead the charge here. Touch of Death about to explode towards Jamili, taking a lot of his health. He's in a good position far away and able to avoid damage. However, mana still even. We've just stepped foot into dampening, which is going to reduce healing over time. It's going to become difficult for Rubcub. He decides to use Divine Shield to save Roasties as his team is falling more and more behind.
Now, the Rejects is doing a good job surviving, but they haven't done anything offensive in quite some time. You can see Smexen basically has all his defensive. Chun-Li as well. Doesn't have a trinket. They might be able to take down Chun-Li in one big swap, but I think with Smexen having the AMZ, it's going to be enough to shut that down. Now, full Fist of Fury over onto Jamili. Nice Ring of Peace, knocking Roasties and Jamili out of line of sight. Rubcub charging in. Gorecki looking for crowd control. Finds the bash on Rubcub. Jamili all alone. No ice block. I don't think he has a cauterize either. Chun-Li actually preemptively used that Fortifying Brew, and a bit of a waste of the AMZ coming in from Smexen. Chun-Li back in now, able to avoid some of the damage with that anti-magic zone, so that was nicely done. Jamili getting the freedom, running away, looking for CC once again. Is he going to find the polymorph? Does sneak it in on Gorecki, but Chun-Li, he realizes he's He's the vulnerable one, preemptively running away.
Chun-Li is still low on health. His healer caught in crowd control. Roasties keeps the chain going, and Chun-Li needs to make a decision. How is he going to get out of this one? Gorecki tries to stall it just in time, but maybe there's enough damage to squeak even more cooldowns. Chun-Li is still low on health. Tons of damage, and Jamili tries to duck out of line of sight, but he left Gorecki behind and ultimately will fall. The Rejects, despite fighting an uphill battle in this Resto Druid meta, managed to pull it off. They're on match point now and look to advance.
Yeah, that was such an impressive match we saw coming in from the Rejects. Unbelievable. Game number 2, it just seemed like it was such an uphill battle for them for most of the game, but they still managed to find that win condition on Chun-Li. Yeah, well, it was a difficult game. Zico, what do you think was the reason why the Rejects was able to actually close out that game?
Well, they stopped attacking the Death Knight and actually went on the right target, which of course is the Windwalker. You have the Blessing of Protections for the Karma. The Windwalker does not have 2 trinkets that he can rotate, one of them being on a minute cooldown, and there's a lot of reasons why the Windwalker is just a better target in general, but he's also the squishiest one. I think that what it comes down to in general when you play this matchup is when you play with a Holy Paladin, instead of that Resto Druid, you get more cleaner setups because the Paladin will set you up more often to land those polymorphs like they are doing right here. And then when you play with like a Druid, you have more long-term stability, but you're not going to land as many CCs. And when you do land the CCs, it's also going to be much longer with a Druid compared to with a Holy Paladin. So I think that they kind of were figuring out who to go on there in the start, but I don't think, I think they were smart to realize that the Windwalker is their win condition for sure. The Windwalker or the Resto Druid. The Death Knight is a big no-go. So anyway, what do you think of what I just said, Sid?
I mean, at this point, I mean, I muted the mics yesterday, but I just had enough of Rich, so I had to close it off. I know sometimes it's just a little bit too much Rich, so
yeah,
we decided to just cut it out a little.
3-man desk now.
It's just a 3-man desk.
It's nice and quiet. It's so peaceful.
I can hear myself think.
Everyone meditate.
The desk is
Rich
so much higher rated.
Jumping straight into the game, the Rejects lead by 2. They can close it out here. We are in the winner's portion of the bracket. If we see the Rejects take this, that means the boys are going to jump down to the lower bracket where they will face elimination.
When Rogue Mage is good, you can almost always certainly guarantee that Jamili will be there to conquer as the Rejects look to redeem their honor from last year, the semifinalists of the Spring Finals in 2018, looking to close up for a first-place finish here in 2019. Great start here on Blade's Edge Arena. Tons of damage towards Chun-Li. Smexon tries to set up some defense with this anti-magic zone, this purple circle and dome of protection, but even still crushing through the weight of that with nothing but raw damage. The boys are heavily behind on cooldowns now.
Gorecki using his trinket to get out of that blind, doesn't want to force Chun-Li to use his Touch of Karma or his Fortifying Brew. He needs some tools to defend himself during the next crowd control chain. Kidney shot on Chun-Li with the Smoke Bomb, taking all kinds of damage. He gets the Touch of Karma, gets bopped off. Safeguard now. Chun-Li playing a lot more defensive in terms of the trinkets he's using. With that Gladiator Safeguard, it's going to be much more difficult for the Rejects to take him down, but this is still such a good start. Look at the cooldowns the boys have available. There's basically nothing left. Nice port from Chun-Li, porting up, kicking Jamili. These are the plays you expect from Grandmaster Chun-Li.
All right, but Roasties is just going. There's really not much here for Chun-Li to stay in this fight. If they can get any crowd control, and Gorecki, they drop the chain. Jamili can't get the polymorph. Rubcub now on defense mode, trying to recover his team for the next assault. If they can set this up, they can easily just execute Chun-Li, knock the boys down to the lower bracket, and continue to advance to face the Super Frogs tomorrow on Championship Sunday. Jamili is back. Rubcub showcasing this Paladin, saying, you know what, Druids, if you're all over the place, I don't care. My Paladin is still going to take you down. Rubcub charging forward. This could be possibly the game-winning crowd control if Gorecki cannot avoid it. He's kiting for his life, avoiding Rubcub at all costs as Rubcub is forced to run some laps across the map, but they're just going to go for damage. They don't even care if they get the crowd control. Chun-Li Gorecki pre-Iron Barks, but even still may not be enough to keep the chain. Chun-Li breaks up the chain. Gorecki keeps the heals going. Good recovery from the boys as they start to stabilize and turn up the heat towards Jamili.
They did exactly what they needed needed to do, stall out the game until the Iron Bark was available. Gorecki able to get that preemptive Iron Bark from Stealth on Chun-Li, knowing the rejects, they just wanted to pull the trigger on their crowd control as fast as possible. Blessing of Sacrifice goes out onto Jamili to keep him alive. Scary situation, but now Chun-Li, his trinkets rotating back up in 25 seconds. He has the Touch of Karma to keep himself alive. He has the Diffuse Magic to keep himself alive. And the boys playing this a lot safer, a lot more patient, realizing the long game they'll eventually win. Blind on Gorecki, kidney shot on Chun-Li. Gorecki trinketing out, wants to allow Chun-Li to sit some of this damage. Maledict's going to be used as well. Ring of Peace gets dropped out. Now, once again, the boys looking to get aggressive on Jamili.
Yeah, and he's trying to go for polymorphs while he's under such heavy fire. Rubcup, what are you going to do? Jamili almost goes down. Finally, the boys get some pressure out onto the battlefield. Gorecki and Chun-Li playing defense, kiting together while Smexen tries to dismantle with just damage in the back line of the rejects. Rubcup leading the charge, trying to get some damage rolling. Still, quite a scary moment. If they swap, this is exactly what they need to do. Swap over to Gorecki. Chun-Li once again backing up Gorecki, now setting up a double stun of his own. Chun-Li hard carries in this position as they lead the assault. It's a race against the clock to take down Jamili. They cyclone the temporal shield. Perfect timing by Gorecki, able to sneak that in, deny all of the healing. Now Rubcup needs to power through. Gorecki switches the cyclone despite the pressure, able to get these amazing cyclone timings. Looking for another, not able to find it, but Jamili still far behind. Rubcup uses Blessing of Protection, and that's going to stall out the damage just long enough. Gorecki sneaking away down below the bridge. I'm curious to see what exactly he's planning on doing down there. He's just crossing the map. He doesn't want to walk through Rubcup, make it difficult for Rubcup to get to him. Interesting kiting from Gorecki, but Roasties catches him. Fortunately, he actually got into bear form. He premeditated that swap. This bear form shapeshift plus the anti-magic zone should be more than enough for Gorecki to survive that attack. You can tell that Gorecki is more than ready to come back in this series. Potentially a reverse sweep.
Yeah, I want to see Smexen use that Dark Simulacron. He needs to be stealing these abilities from Jamili as often as possible, trying to get the polymorph. If he can get just 1 or 2 polymorphs, he can close out the game with that. Rubcup only really has his trinket left, so want to see Smexen start to get some more crowd control for his team with that ability. Still, Jamili being trained down, a lot of damage going to be avoided without all that damage. The triple leg sweep. Rubcup has to trinket out. Jamili running for his life just a little bit right now. Rubcup really doesn't have too much healing to his system. If Chun-Li and Smexen can stay on target, it's going to be so difficult for the rejects to survive. And there's the polymorph.
Dark Simulacron polymorph. Smexen trying to carry the game here, but Jamili just kiting insane away. And he's got support by Roasties. Now Gorecki, he's avoiding Rubcup at all costs, going up and down these ramps, across the bridge, under the bridge. He's just all over the map to avoid Rubcup, and his awareness to Rubcup's positioning this game has been absolutely insane. Smexen clotheslines Rubcup as he tried to cross the map, and now Jamili's put behind. Rubcup moves forward. Gorecki just jumps down below to avoid it. Rubcup can't keep up, and Jamili's falling behind. Paralysis could potentially secure the game, but Jamili's just going to counter aggress at the same time. Smexen trades the anti-magic shield. He's going to be all right. Gorecki still max ranging Rubcup and healing the team at the same time. Multiple interrupts. Rubcup recovers, but at the cost of a lot of vital defensive cooldowns. Rubcup does not have much time to keep his team going.
There's the full blind on Gorecki. He trinkets out. Chun-Li into the polymorph. Gorecki didn't really have to trinket there. I guess he doesn't want to fall behind. Just wants to basically trade out that cooldown so later on in the game it doesn't end up biting him. Now Rubcup into a full stun. Jamili as well. Another triple setup coming in. Jamili really doesn't have too much to survive. Ice Block still on timer for another minute. Maledict comes in. Chun-Li looking to close out this game. Nice Frost Nova from Jamili. Can he escape? Blink polymorph spam. Rubcup has to spam out the heals to keep him alive. And now a swap over onto Smexen. Can the rejects turn it around?
Maledict onto Smexen. That's absorbing all of Gorecki's heals. The Iron Barks to stabilize. Dark Simulacron polymorph. Pressure on both sides. Either team could go down at any point as Smexen is dangerously low. Jamili doesn't have anything left, but he's going to just go aggressive anyway. They're on match point to try and take him down. Roasties is rotting. Rubcup having a hard time recovering through this multi-pressure at this point in the match. Blessing of Protection is going to stall it out as Jamili holds on by a thread. Gorecki has managed to recover, his team getting a lot more stable. It's really Rubcup on the ropes now at this point with Jamili. Not much left to work with. Blinks away, gets Ring of Peace back to the team by Chun-Li. Hard carry. Gorecki moves in, continues the chain onto Rubcup. Jamili still under fire, trying desperately to get away, but he can't. Cyclone secured. They race the temporal shield, and just in time, get it. The boys are back, putting a point on the board and keeping their tournament lives in the upper bracket alive.
And the boys are relentless on Jamili throughout the entirety of that Seiko. It's just time and time again, one of the first things you see, not only the Carter Eyes going to be procced, but instantly into the Ice Block as well. What changed? Why were they able to find so much pressure?
Well, again, Gorecki in general in this series has been doing a great job avoiding that crowd control, but also Chun-Li. This map is really, really good for Chun-Li, where the rings of pieces, as you can see right there, one of them is a big reason to why. The other reason, of course, is that he can drop down after those stuns, wait out the CC chain, port back up again, use that verticality to his advantage. And Chun-Li honestly had a great performance in this game in general, putting out so much pressure onto Jamili. I think Gorecki as well had some really key plays. That one time when he cloned up the temporal shield, then he swapped it as the bubble of Rubcup fades. He swaps that Cyclone to Rubcup, creating opportunity after opportunity. Even towards the end of the match there, we saw a paralyze into the Cyclone, get stopped on the Cyclone, then he goes for the bash into the Cyclone, which was what secured them the win there towards the end. So they just stepped up their individual play, and of course they used the map to great advantage as well.
I do want to say though, Zico, back in the day, when you would see an arcane mage get locked in, your eyes lit up like a puppy when his owner gets home from work. So now I don't see that same sparkle in your eye when you see an arcane mage locked in. Why have you fallen maybe out of love with arcane?
Oh, believe me, I have played so much arcane mage in BFA. It's just... to be completely honest with you, it just lacks damage. Missiles are a little bit underwhelming. You still have great mobility. You still have a lot of control in the sense that I think Arcane is still the best spec at landing polys on the different healers. But I don't see that being that much of a factor in that Resto Druid meta. And also, I don't think that even when you land those polys, you have enough damage to actually get something going with them. Usually people just end up sitting those polys, ignoring the Arcane Mage a lot because he's not that threatening by himself. So that's why my eyes don't light up anymore, Rich, when I see the Arcane Mage locked in.
But is this the opportunity? Is this the right time for an Arcane Mage in your mind? Against this composition, do you enjoy seeing it locked in?
Well, I always like watching Arcane Mages play to see kind of... maybe they can do something that I didn't think about and surprise me in some kind of way. Unfortunately, we already saw one Arcane Mage today, and while he played really good, it was kind of more of the same, long dampening game, and then eventually they went down. And I think if your game plan is to dampen, you need a Resto Druid on your team. So if they locked in this composition with a Resto Druid, I would have been on board. With a Holy Paladin, I'm still kind of skeptical, but maybe Jamili knows something that I didn't think about.
Let's see if Jamili can make a believer out of Zico. And if he does that, we'll be able to move on to the upper finals to play for a spot in the grand finals. Not the boys are going to bring this all the way to a game 5.
I'm curious to see what talents Jamili is going to be running. Does he play the Chrono Shift, which is really good for keeping himself alive? Basically, every time he uses the Arcane Barrage, he gets a sprint and also reduces the movement speed of his enemies. But you trade out Ring of Frost for that, so when Rubcup pushes in, he gets a Hammer of Justice. There's going to be no follow-up from Jamili if he doesn't have the Ring of Frost, so there's definitely a trade there, and I'm curious to see which one he is running.
I mean, yeah, I guess I feel like Chrono Shift is the better option against this type of setup. At least I feel like they're going to just be kiting around the large map, baiting Smack and Chun-Li into the open and then trying to burst them down, but the boys aren't falling for that bait. Instead, death gripping Jamili. Ursul's Vortex on his blink. Perfect maneuver there by Gorecki, holding both Jamili and Roasties right next to each other so Chun-Li and Smexen can maximize their damage potential. Rubcup still not making a move across the map just yet. You need to keep your eyes on that cheeky Paladin. If he mounts up onto his Paladin steed, he wants to get something done. At the moment, getting clotheslined by an Asphyxiate, holding him in place as Roasty starts to get destroyed. Chun-Li splitting on Jamili. Jamili able to blink to safety, not typically going to be targeting an Arcane Mage. What is going on with Roasty's health there? Just getting completely decimated. Jamili obviously picking the Arcane spec, so his defense is better, but apparently Roasty's is quite vulnerable overall as he's just getting stomped early on in this. Maledict at very low health. That's going to absorb a lot of healing that Rubcup is trying to power through. Finally managing to recover. They do have an option with Smoke Bomb here to take out Chun-Li. He needs to be ready for that. At any moment, Roasties can drop Smoke Bomb, and then the healer Gorecki will not be able to save him. And they're waiting for it. They're finding the opportunity. They're baiting Gorecki far away, but now caught into a leg sweep. Roasties needs to commit this soon if he wants to take advantage of it.
That was a sick play by Chun-Li, using the Ring of Peace and knocking Rubcub back into Roasties to get the double stun. Very high-level plays, and this is kind of what Zico was talking about. You can just ignore the Arcane Mage in this matchup. He's not going to be able to put out too much damage, not the same sort of threat as a Fire Mage free casting, but as I say that, Chun-Li having to run away a little bit defensive. That's going to be the Maledict. He uses a Diffuse Magic to remove that, keep himself alive with the Gladiator Safeguard as well, and now he can jump back in the action. But he used a lot of his mobility there to keep himself alive, so if Jamili can kite away, it's going to be difficult for Chun-Li to reconnect.
Smexen stole a pod, but there could be the smoke bomb potential. Roasties was waiting for this moment, but Smexen will save the day. Anti-magic zone, that purple barrier protecting Chun-Li. That's used by Smexen just in the nick of time. That was the game-winning play. It was Roasties was waiting for that opportunity, and Smexen completely deflects it. Now that damage potential is going to be quite low, and it's going to be up to the boys to take advantage of this moment to get aggressive. Rubcub follows the chain though with a Hammer of Justice. Jamili can't get out of this stun at the moment, but Rubcub is supporting him quite effectively. The crowd control chain has been dropped, and Jamili going into the corner. This is the wizard corner on Tolvaron Arena. You want to go to this far open side, try and bait the melee out there so you can free cast on them and expose the enemy healer. They're not falling for the bait, instead switching targets to someone in a more favorable position.
Yeah, Jamili, of course, he is playing the Chrono Shift talent, so when Rubcub does push in, get the Hammer of Justice, Gorecki's not in any real threat, especially if he's in bear form. It's going to be difficult for Jamili to follow that up. Also, Jamili's playing the Kleptomania talent, which isn't something I normally like to play against Resto Druids just because I feel like the threat of always being able to spam spell steal is a little bit more devastating, but Jamili really focusing on heavy damage, doesn't want to use the globals on lots of spell steals, just wants to use it once, remove everything, and then get out as much burst damage as possible.
Mana fairly even on both fronts, but the Rejects do not have a clear route to victory just yet. They're going to have to work just a bit harder to find that opportunity, looking to get Chun-Li's Gladiator's medallion as soon as possible. That yellow helmet just to the left of Chun-Li's name, if that goes on cooldown, has a number on it, he cannot get out of kidney shots, which is a very vulnerable moment in the game. That's what they're looking to fish for and get out of the way. While Chun-Li still has that, he can easily get out of crowd control and start counter pressuring. So let's see if Roasties can force it anytime soon here. Still building up combo points. They grip Rubcub in, potentially for a swap, but at the same time, kidney shot Chun-Li. Instead of this position, he pre-fortifying bruise, expecting the stun. Nice read by Chun-Li, and that allows him to hold that Gladiator's medallion even further.
Yep, Jamili looking for some damage, just crowd controlling everyone up. Polymorph now on Chun-Li, but the boys are looking so healthy in this position. No one's really taking too much damage. Rosty's getting knocked away once again. Chun-Li and Smexen kind of all over him. Chun-Li looking to make a swap now on Jamili. Gorecki is sitting down, or he was sitting down for a drink, trying to regen some mana, but sitting far away in bear form. His team's very healthy, and most of the pressure is on the favor of the boys.
All right, Arcane Power available for Jamili, that lightning bolt below his health. Vendetta available for Roasties, that red hooded character below his health. Those are both powerful increasing cooldowns and can turn the tide of battle quite quickly. If they coordinate that together with crowd control on Gorecki and eliminate his ability to heal, they can execute for a kill. In the meantime, the boys are gunning down Rubcub, trying to go for the throat, and that vital healer role that with multiple interrupts, it could be difficult. Rubcub handling it though like a master, and now the boys are forced to switch targets again over to Roasties. Jamili trying to get some Arcane Blast burst off, but not able to find it. Still holding on to that Arcane Power, now committing it. Jamili could do a ton of damage. Chun-Li barely portaling back to safety. Jamili was looking for a cheeky kill, but not able to get it and gets denied.
Yep, bashed now on Jamili. Gorecki pushing in. He trinkets out of the blind immediately. Chun-Li looking to close out the game, doing some damage to Jamili, but Rubcub in a very defensive position is going to be able to keep him alive. But if we look at mana just entering dampening, it is in favor of Gorecki, and I'd say pressure is in favor of the boys as well. Things aren't looking too good for the Rejects right now. Rossi's caught into a leg sweep. He does have the evasion. If he has to trade it out right now, it's not ideal. Rubcub was caught into an incapacitate, but manages to get out of that. Holy Light's going to connect onto Roasties, and ultimately he will survive, but he did trade out the evasion there to keep himself up.
The Rejects had great momentum in game 1 and 2, but the boys are starting to diffuse that momentum and starting to slow the train down, and the Rejects need to get it back into action. They're so far behind on cooldown, it's going to be difficult to do so as Roasties hovers at about 50% health and Rubcub struggles to heal. Dampening now entering effect with 7% healing reduction at the top of your screen. That number gets higher, healing becomes more difficult, and really the Restoration Druid is supposed to be favored. Rubcub crosses the map, tries to set up for a kill onto Smexen. The crowd control looks good, but Smexen can easily deny it with usage of that Death Strike ability, healing himself back up during that vital timing, and I do not expect that Smexen will be a kill target until dampening is much higher. I would much rather see them go after Chun-Li until that time. Chun-Li committing the Touch of Death. Roasties doesn't have a good answer. They grip in Rubcub. They stun him as well. Double to follow up. This could be devastating as Touch of Death explodes. Roasty gets bursted. Rubcub needs to try and recover. He's next to them, and Smexen steals a polymorph. Dark Simulacron looks good, and Roasty's dips lower and lower. Rubcub trying to hold out till the bitter end so he doesn't have to use too many defensive cooldowns. Managing to hold on to all of them. That presence of mind. Rubcub makes a sick play. Holds on to those cooldowns for a later push. Now leading the charge with that Avenging Crusader. Smoke Bomb gets dropped. Chun-Li once again. Preemptive Fortifying Brew. Will it be enough? Doesn't seem to matter. Chun-Li's in a great position to just Transcendence out of the fight. And Chun-Li's defense looks impenetrable this game.
Yeah, he's been doing a phenomenal job. Bash now on Rubcub. He trinkets out to get the Hammer of Justice on Gorecki. Chun-Li still low. He hasn't been able to survive. He uses the Touch of Karma. Immediately gets bopped off. And this is the all-in coming in from the rejects. Chun-Li in the AMZ with the Diffuse Magic with the Iron Bark. There's no way Chun-Li goes down in this situation. But that go from the rejects managed to pull up basically every single defensive that the boys had available.
Right when I said their defense was impenetrable, they blew through all of it within a couple of seconds. And now Roasties has that Vendetta below and available. He could commit at any moment, and he's going to commit it right now and just try and tear Chun-Li apart. How is Chun-Li going to deal with the pressure? Uses the Tiger's Lust, lands a double stun, tries to keep the pressure up. Roasties is really not getting too much effective damage during this period of time. He would have loved to get a lot more pressure. Chun-Li doesn't even seem to care. Now we see a polymorph over onto Rubcub, stolen by Smexen once again, but still nothing capitalized off the back of that. Gorecki behind the pillar. Rubcub would love to get a Hammer of Justice. They need to try and flank Gorecki as he leaves the pillar. Charges in, stuns Roasties. Roasties actually Cloak of Shadows, 2 stuns this game. Both teams really predicting the incoming crowd control quite effectively, playing at the top level. Another stun committed towards Chun-Li. How's Gorecki going to deal with the pressure? Doesn't seem like he's struggling too much in this position. Smexen's Dark Simulacron available to steal a polymorph here shortly, and they could close the game out with that towards Roasty. They grip Rubcub in, they stun him, they deny the Hammer of Justice. It's keep Rubcub away from Gorecki as long as possible, but Chun-Li sneaks in, gets a polymorph, and Chun-Li gets bursted. He portals back to safety, but he's very far away from Gorecki.
Yeah, luckily Windwalker Monks has some self-healing, so behind the pillar in the situation, he should be able to top himself off, or at least get healthy enough where he can go in. And Chun-Li, with his trinket, with the Touch of Karma, Diffuse Magic, he should be feeling pretty safe in this situation. I don't think Rubcub has any more of his Blessing of Protections left to remove the Touch of Karma. Chun-Li is going to play aggressive on Jamili here, try to slow down some of that damage, but at 25% dampening, things are going to get scary for both teams.
It's match point. If the rejects take this, they'll advance. The boys will go down to the lower bracket, so there's a lot more on the line for the boys. They may play more overly cautious because of that. Chun-Li backing off with Gorecki at the pillar, but they left Smexen out in midfield. Chun-Li doesn't want to leave him there alone. He's going to immediately charge back into the battle. Gorecki looking to try and avoid Rubcub. Rubcub's there. He's playing goalie, denying Gorecki, but Gorecki re-stealths, so he's sneaking across the map while Rubcub can't see him to get to a safer position to start healing his team. And good awareness, but Rubcub now sees him. He's charging, gets gripped away. Good interception by Smexen, but Chun-Li is still struggling. Gorecki just can't heal him. He's trying to avoid crowd control and heal at the same time. Trinket's out of blind, gets silenced on the trinket. Jamili all over him. Rubcub moving in. They got Gorecki surrounded. He manages to make a getaway. Gorecki just so slippery on this Druid.
Yeah, he manages to escape, and now Rubcub can't follow up the crowd control with the Hammer of Justice. There'll be no polymorph coming in from Jamili. Kidney Shot now committed on Chun-Li. The reject's just looking for some damage. It's going to be very effective at this point in dampening. Jamili has the arcane power that was a Vendetta committed onto Chun-Li, empowering the rogue's damage. Gorecki not doing too hot on mana at this point in the game either. These Kleptomanias consistently coming in from Jamili, really taxing Gorecki's mana, forcing him to keep putting up those skill over time effects. Blessing of Sacrifice going to be used on Roasties. He gets swapped to Chun-Li, the one who's in trouble. He ports away Diffuse Magic, Fortifying Elixir. That's all that he really has left. The Ring of Peace would be enough to keep him alive. Potentially Gorecki is there to keep him alive. Managed to get the hots up, but the Gladiator's Maledict's going to be very scary. Finally, the Iron Bark connects to Chun-Li to keep him alive, and now the boys, they need to strike back and get some pressure.
They got a polymorph on Rubcub. Great play by Smexen, carrying the team there as both teams run on the bottom line. There's really not a lot left for either side, and Jamili is just getting owned by Smexen right now. Gorecki can't heal him. He's too far away. If he walks out in the open, he's going to get crowd control. Instead, gets Cyclone on Roasties. Jamili's still low. Gorecki just can't. Is he going to be able to do it? He is. Jamili barely hanging on. Rubcub trying to do what he can with basically nothing, and Jamili is ultimately getting vortexed on the blink, manages to escape just for a couple of extra seconds. Smexen, the Terminator Death Knight, looking to take him down. If Chun-Li connects for even a moment, Jamili will fall. Rubcub can no longer heal. Dampening ramped up so high, managing to pull it off for a couple more seconds, but ultimately getting out. Malediction gets denied. Rubcub keeps him going just a tad bit longer. A stolen polymorph again by Smexen, and will it land any anytime soon is then the question. I don't believe so. Jamili now still hanging on by a thread. This Arcane Mage so annoying to just stick to with multiple blinks available. Chun-Li's got so much defense, though. I don't see any openings. It's looking so grim for Rubcub.
Yeah, Jamili, not really too much left to work with here. He has a temporal shield. He has the greater invisibility. When Chun-Li and Smexen land on him, he wants to use the greater invisibility. It reduces damage by 60% for 4 seconds. Temporal shield gets used at a good time. Rubcub completely out of mana. Jamili trying to keep himself alive everything he can, but he gets interrupted, and Jamili gets taken down. The boys seem like they have figured out the rejects, and I think the rejects have to go back to the drawing board.
The boys are making a comeback, and they have gotten themselves a ticket all the way to Game 5 to decide it. And Zico, before we even got in this matchup, you see the Arcane Mage, and you say, we're going into dampening. That much is pretty much certain. And we have a Holy Paladin on the same team as the Arcane Mage. Is it even possible to find a win? We get into the dampening. Was that the problem? Do we see the comp not having a win condition in dampening?
Well, the comp has a win condition in dampening, but the comp also has a Holy Paladin in dampening. That's the problem. I think what it comes down to, honestly, is they can't really pressure Chun-Li hard enough to actually make him become a non-factor, essentially. I even think that the boys could have played more aggressive towards Roasties at the very beginning of that game. They almost took Roasties down multiple times. They went on Rubcub. They forced out a lot of cooldowns by going onto Rubcub as well. The Arcane Mage, in my opinion, is the worst target for them to go on, and they still managed to win by doing just that. I think Smexen, he should be gold keeping a little bit on that Arcane Mage, shutting him down, making sure that he doesn't become too much of a problem, but I want to see more damage onto Roasties, and if they can play, well, if Gorecki plays well enough, they shouldn't really fall, even in dampening, just because of that Druid being so strong right now.
Well, I think Seth Curry's going to be able to put out maybe more cleave damage onto Chun-Li and Smexen. Maybe they can focus more on getting both targets low, the rejects, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to find the damage.
The last Holy Paladin in a deep, dark forest. Will Rubcub find his way out? We're about to find out here. It's match point. Either way, one of these teams will advance at the end of this match. Crowd control initiated by the rejects. Damage has been exchanged, and Smexen is taking the brute force of this initial attack, but with his cooldown trade, he effectively deals with it, dealing with the arcane power with the anti-magic zone, dealing with the follow-up with the anti-magic shield, and as a result nullifies the initial attack. Now Seth Curry getting caught in the leg sweep and bursted down quite heavily. Tons of damage following that up. No cooldowns traded just yet. Diffuse magic, but that may not be enough on its own as Gladiator's Maledicts are flying in and soaking up even more healing. Rubcub manages to hold out, but Touch of Karma was forced. Now Seth Curry is vulnerable moving forward.
Yeah, he still has his trinket. If he has his portal in a good position, he should be able to survive. I see it in midfield right now, but I like that Chun-Li and Smexen are not afraid to go after Seth Curry. They were able to force out a ton of defensive cooldowns, but Jamili is the main target. I think is smart because if you sit on him long enough, it's really going to prevent the amount of damage he can do. But a big go now here from the rejects. Touch of Death committed onto Smexen with a Hammer of Justice on Gorecki, but Gorecki with nice plays gets the Iron Bark on that Touch of Death. They kind of televised to go with the Touch of Death, and Gorecki could have read the situation quite easily.
Yeah, cooldowns exchanged in favor of the boys as would be expected. Mana not looking that amazing for Gorecki. Jamili trying to use that Kleptomania, I can imagine, as frequently as possible. Gorecki saw that mana disadvantage starting to establish itself, so he decided to sit down for a drink, which now allows him to regenerate that mana, and the lead that they did have is now more evened out. Good awareness on Gorecki's part, realizing it's going to be a late stage match, and taking any opportunity to regenerate mana is important.
Yep, Jamili's still looking for polymorphs, just playing it up for the long game, trying to get some damage rolling on Chun-Li. Gorecki in a very defensive position. Really the only time we're going to see the boys' health move is when Rubcub decides to get aggressive. When he gets the Hammer of Justice or Seth Curry has his incapacity up with his paralysis, that's going to be their moment to really get some damage rolling. Outside of the crowd control, it's going to be heavily in favor of the boys.
Rubcub moves over to follow up the chain as the rejects initiate an attack, but Jamili is still the one taking the brunt of this. Temporal Shield well timed. It's going to top him back up to a safe margin. I do not think that you are going to kill a Death Knight before dampening. I would like them to attack Chun-Li instead, or maybe even switch to Gorecki. They're going to need some dampening to reduce the healing of Deathstrike. These heal over time effects and Death Strike just too durable before that point, and really they haven't gotten anything done. The only way they could maybe navigate around that is by playing Grapple Weapon on the Windwalker, but you lose so much potent honor talents to do so. It's unlikely that he is running that. Rubcup gets gripped into the fray as the boys are initiating an attack towards him to try and turn up the heat. With no Avenging Crusader, it can be difficult to heal as a Paladin with the Death Knight in your face, so he's going to use Blessing of Freedom and just kite away and avoid it, managing to go in there for a Hammer of Justice and actually sneaking a Polymorph. Good crowd control chain, but it's still actually Seth Curry on the back foot. Finally, some damage towards Smexen. The chain looks really good. Smexen tries to steal a Polymorph. I do believe that he did manage to, and now he's going to Polymorph Rubcup. Nice play on Smexen's part. Seth Curry trying to kite as well as Jamili. That Ursul's Vortex well placed now into a Cyclone. Good crowd control chain, just no damage.
Yeah, it's going to be so difficult for Chun-Li and Smexen to actually establish a kill unless the rejects make a big mistake, especially with how defensive Jamili's playing. He's just playing far back, occasionally pushing in for the Polymorphs, but with the Ring of Peace from Seth Curry with the Disable Root and the Disable Snare and the Turbo Fist Snare as well, Seth Curry can keep Jamili alive far better than Roasties could have, and now Seth Curry seems to be the only target they can get on, but with the Turbo Fist, he has 100% parry every single time he uses the Fist of Fury, which is really difficult for Smexen and Chun-Li to sort of push through.
Rubcup in a bit of trouble here. Chun-Li leading the charge. He's trying to make a getaway up on that steed and managing to get a Hammer of Justice as well. Gunning down Smexen. Finally some damage. Where did this come from? Smexen could just fall. Another Polymorph. Smexen barely holding on. Bit of a close call. I was counting the rejects out, saying that they couldn't take Smexen out, but now they find a window of opportunity. That was the Arcane Power Touch of Death, and if you combine those together, it's a huge swing of burst damage. Fortunately, Smexen was able to survive it in that position, but if that happens in dampening, Smexen does not make it out alive.
Yeah, the truth is, with enough Maledicts, you can take any target down, so you just got to coordinate those and a big assault, a big push onto Smexen, and you can take him down, especially with the nice crowd control on a Gorecki. You sort of mitigate the amount of healing the Death Strike is going to do, so Smexen can't really rely on his own self-healing during those moments. Chun-Li now taking a little bit of burst. Maledict committed over onto Rubcup. He's trying to kite away, caught into the full stun. They may have found their target. Rubcup into the stun. Is there anything else? Chun-Li getting a little bit low as well. Rubcup opting to sort of kite away, just topping himself off with his Avenging Crusader. It does now fade, but he got all the healing he needed from that cooldown.
All right, it's game 5. The winner of this will advance in the upper bracket to face the Super Frogs, and the loser will go down to the deadly lower bracket and face elimination later today. There's a lot on the line as dampening has now initiated. That red number at the top of the screen, it gets higher and higher over time, and it reduces healing in the match, which you can imagine makes it difficult for healers to recover their team through immense amounts of damage. So things are about to get interesting here. Ladies and gentlemen, tuning in. Gorecki avoiding Rubcup throughout this entire series. It's been cat and mouse with Rubcup chasing down Gorecki, making it so difficult for him to get a Hammer of Justice as he's often off screen, just kiting Rubcup across the outside of the map. Rubcup actually getting polymorphed to Smexen, makes a move. Will they be able to connect? It doesn't appear to be the case. Smexen marching his way across to try and get to Jamili, but Seth Curry's peeling him away, keeping him snared up with tons of damage, and it's actually looking maybe favorable for the rejects with that immense burst we saw earlier on Smexen. I can't completely count them out.
No, not at all. Jamili gets interrupted on the missiles, so the damage will kind of stop for now. Rubcup just has to keep his team alive and stable for a little bit longer. The boys, they still have so many of their defensives available. We need to see a couple more crowd control chains, but these all-in damage setups from the rejects are really scary for the boys to deal with, especially as dampening creeps higher and higher.
All right, Hammer of Justice on Gorecki. Do they have anything out of it? Jamili would love to get over there for a polymorph, but Gorecki is in travel form, and you cannot polymorph a druid when he is shapeshifted, so it was a good read by Gorecki. Instead, using paralysis. Seth Curry trying to set something up here for some burst over onto Smexen, but really not getting too much done. Maybe switching to Chun-Li. And I would think that switching targets could be an effective strategy. Restoration Druids, their powerful heal over time effect, Life Bloom, has to be committed and stacked 3 times on the target. So if you switch to a target that doesn't have it, the Restoration Druid has to spend a lot of time switching it to that one. And if you constantly bounce back and forth, you cost the Druid time and mana and put him behind. I would like to see more swaps from the rejects.
Yep, Smexen caught in midfield. When he's midfield and there's no targets for him to hit, he cannot be using his self-healing with that Death Strike. So if Smexen does get caught in those situations, it can be a little bit scary here. Jamili's still trying to get some damage rolling. Touch of Death has been committed onto Smexen. Preemptive Ironbark once again from Gorecki. The Incapacitate comes in. Smexen with the AMS should be able to deflect. A nice setup coming in from the boys, but the Smexen is still low. Hammer of Justice on Gorecki. He still has his trinket available, opting not to use it. Smexen is ultimately going to survive. But during that moment, Icebound Fortitude gets traded out. The Ring of Peace as well. He's trying to chase down Jamili. Surprising amounts of damage coming in from the rejects.
And now we're basically halfway through the dampening pool, and he doesn't have Icebound Fortitude, so I actually do think the rejects are going to take this. I've seen really no opportunities for them aggressively, no close calls. They are going to try and go after Seth Curry. They have to kill him in this stun. Do they have enough damage to do it? They get another stun. Can they pull it off? Seth Curry gets Touch of Karma and Blessing of Sacrifice. Finally, a window of opportunity for the boys as the rejects defense starts to crack, but Seth Curry starts the assault. Rubcub moves in. This could just close the game if Gurecki is not careful. Smexon taking a ton of damage. Gurecki uses Gladiator's Medallion. Overlap with the anti-magic zone. You can tell in dampening that things start to become increasingly stressful and teams make more and more mistakes as both sides start to trade unevenly. Smexon tries to carry the team with a stolen Cyclone, going after Seth Curry, bursting him down, gripping him back into the fray, able to Transcendence Portal back away, but is it going to be enough? Just forced to run all the way across the map. Smexon Terminator style once again. Seth Curry getting cloned at low health. Nice maneuver by Gurecki. If they get any crowd control on Rubcub, it could be curtains for Seth Curry.
Yeah, Seth Curry in a lot of trouble. He's actually running the Diffuse Magic to remove the Maledicts. Blessing of Protection going to be used over onto Seth Curry. So that's sort of one of the last lines of defenses Rubcubs has. He has his Trinket rotating back up, his Divine Shield, but really just no healing cooldowns, no emergency cooldowns like that Blessing of Protection, like that Blessing of Sacrifice. Rubcub now getting swapped to. If they can force out his Bubble or Trinket here, it's going to be huge, but I don't think they have the damage in this setup. They kind of want to just bring Rubcub in, get the cleave damage on Seth Curry. Chun-Li now getting a little bit low. Hammer of Justice been used on Gurecki. Chun-Li trying to kite away. Fortifying Elixir should be enough to keep him alive, but the Touch of Death gets committed by Seth Curry into that Fortifying Brew. Gurecki might have to use his Iron Bark here. Nice Ring of Peace by Chun-Li, denying Seth Curry any damage.
I did not like that maneuver. If you're going to go after the Death Knight this long and then you use your most powerful cooldown on a different target, like, that has to be an error. Seth Curry locked down in crowd control, barely trading out Touch of Karma to stay in the fight. Both healers almost tapped on mana. The dampening is ramping up to critical mass. Both these teams are going to find it difficult to recover at this point, and it's match point. It's anyone's game at this point. Who's going to take it? Who's going to stay in the upper side of the bracket? Rubcub's trying to make his team be the one, securing crowd control on Gurecki, but Jamili is the one who is falling more and more behind. If he's not able to kite and avoid Smexon and Chun-Li, he could easily just fall, getting bursted. Maledicts connects, tons of damage. He's actually choosing to evocate. It gets interrupted on his mana is actually quite low. It could become difficult and problematic for Jamili. Rubcub crowd control. Jamili has to ice block, and this game is slowly slipping out of the rejects' hands. They're about to get reverse sweeped.
Yeah, Rubcub having a difficult time healing up his team. He gets caught into the leg sweep on his Trinket. Seth Curry still low. Nothing left for him. Maledict is used. Seth Curry uses the Ring of Peace. Actually, Chun-Li uses the Ring of Peace. Seth Curry gets forced out of it, trying to run away, trying to kite the best he can. The melee wings, the Avenging Crusader from Rubcub is going to allow him to do melee damage and heal up his team, but now that that's faded, he is very vulnerable. Touch of Death used on Seth Curry. He doesn't really have a response. He needs to kite away. He needs to avoid damage. Blessing of Protection coming in the nick of time from Rubcub to keep him alive.
Smexon can Dark Simulacron on a Polymorph. Snag that on Rubcub. It could be devastating. Jamili cannot afford at all costs to give a Polymorph to Smexon. They could just close the game out here as both teams are on the ropes. Really not much left to work with. Jamili manages to stabilize, but the mana doesn't look good. Gurecki sitting down for a drink. He regenerated just a tiny bit, but that tiny bit may be enough. Gurecki in crowd control. Smexon targeted down, but he's got cooldowns to trade. Seth Curry makes the trade, but he's so dangerously low. Both teams are not likely to go back to full health at any time soon. At 37% healing reduction, Smexon trades basically everything he's got to stay in the fight, to stay on target, and to take Seth Curry down, but it still may not be enough as Smexon is just getting annihilated. These arcane missiles pummeling forward. Seth Curry caught into Alexia, but the Touch of Death is about to explode onto Smexon. Either player could fall at any moment. Rubcub's completely tapped on mana. He can't get any heals out at this point, but Seth Curry isn't going to be able to make it. Smexon is so low as well, but Gurecki's mana is just that tiny bit ahead, and that drink he got earlier in the game may be the game-winning factor.
Yeah, Rubcub uses Divine Shield, but he's got no mana. He's got no cooldown. Seth Curry using the Fist of Fury with the Turbo Fist to stay alive. It gets stunned, though, by Smexon. Seth Curry still just trying to kite away, has the Diffuse Magic available if he needs it, spamming out the Diffuser, the Vivifies over and over. Those Windwalker Monk self-heals. Chun-Li ports on top of him, looking to close out the game. Rubcub in desperation, just standing still. He does not have any gas left in the tank, and the boys coming in with the reverse sweep.
Boys are going to be able to do it, and you can see they get into dampening, and this is an environment where their composition doesn't necessarily thrive, but maybe does out-edge what the rejects have by just a little bit. The rejects now going to be dropping down. We'll see more from them later as they will face elimination in their next series. But how are the boys able to do it, Zico?
I liked what Smexon was doing for the most part of this game. He was basically just trying to shut down Jamili, make sure that he doesn't land those polymorphs in the crucial moments, and he was balancing his offense and defense very well. Had some nice dark sims as well. For playing an alt, I thought he did a phenomenal job. And of course, Chun-Li, we gotta give it out to this guy. He's always on point with those ports, with his kiting, with the balance between offense and defense. Really did a phenomenal job. The entire squad really pulled ahead and made it count. And I think, like Venruki already mentioned during that game-winning drink was a key factor for sure, letting them kind of recover there and edge out the mana advantage a little bit, just so they can take the win there in the end.